I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into...
Madam President, point of order. I need to relate it to the business at hand, and since we're calling this, I need to have a point of order, please. Related to the business at hand, I seconded a request for an agenda item to be placed on tonight's agenda about a board member's conduct outside a duly called meeting to address alleged behavior that I believe has negatively affected and perhaps damaged this whole process, which needs to be addressed before proceeding with the interviews. But it was kept off of this agenda, and certain items here were added to close that I believe are supposed to occur in open session for transparency and accountability. So I don't know how if my point is well taken or not.
What do you believe is in closed that should be in open?
First, we talked about the interviews being an open session, and that was what I stated publicly last time, and that was from my understanding, the intent. And number 3, the deliberation regarding next steps, that is supposed to be in open session for any of those discussions. That's what we've done. That's what TASB recommends because we're talking about the process, and so that should also be in open session.
Well, that is what 3A is, discussion and possible action regarding next steps.
But 2A3 says deliberation regarding next steps in the process. All of that has to be done publicly, or supposed to be done publicly. So 2A3 should be out there. There should not be in closed. That shouldn't even be here, in my opinion. And once again, the interviews, as I stated publicly, and there was no other motion against it, that it was going to be public interviews for the question and answer for the 4 candidates.
Well, and I sent an email that said, after a discussion with Rick, that we could do that. However, I expressed what my concerns were for that. And then also I had a conversation with Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, sent me an email and had concerns about this process. And she asked me to call her, and she asked if we were doing this in open or in closed. And I said that there had been a request to do it in open, but I had concerns. And she asked how we've done it in the past. And I said, we've always done it in closed. And she said that if we change the process, then we run the risk of the entire process being challenged and up for litigation.
Well,
so I followed that up with Mr. Lopez, and he said that could subject us to a challenge to the process.
Then we should have an agenda item. We should have had an agenda item to discuss that first, because that is new information to us, if that's our attorney's opinion. And that doesn't change the fact of because this is our board, our process. It's been different than the other 3 times when we didn't have the same dynamics. So this is what our board gets to decide. And totally unaware of the Representative Hawkins conversation or the conversation you had with Mr. Lopez about that in litigation, but those are all things that we as a board should be discussing. So I have a huge concern with how we have this structured tonight, since it's not what we had publicly. I stated the 11 steps, which include open session. There was no other motion not to do that, and to not do that, this is a board corporate decision to do this. So
I don't know that the motion made last time said that it would be in open.
The motion itself actually did not, but we had discussed it, and that was, I believe, what you would offer was the expectation, and that there was consensus if we could do it, which, as you indicated, our lawyer said we can, then we can do it in open, because this is all about transparency in the community, seeing the process play out.
So this is on the agenda, says that it's going to be enclosed. So are you suggesting that we reschedule the interviews?
I would like to do them tonight, but once again, under 551071, any applicant or any individual can choose to have it in open session. And I think we should afford them the opportunity, because we don't need to be doing this in closed. Everyone should see what we're doing, but we're allowed to. I've gone through this process as a parent. I requested open session. Anybody has the right, the individual, to say, waive the right to do it in closed and request an open session. So I think we should do all of them in open session. Yes, as I stated before, and have consistently, that we need to be very transparent in this process.
Okay, well, I am going to have to consult with the attorney, since it's listed on the agenda as being enclosed.
I would think that if we switch now to an open session, we're going to have to cancel everything tonight, repost this for later this week, and because it would not be considerate of the interviewees who were expecting a closed session to now all of a sudden have it in open. And that would be-
Point of personal privilege. I need to address the accuracy of board members' conduct. The entire board member received an email on Wednesday, September the 27th, 2023, at 10:02 a.m. from the board president. At multiple points in the email, there was a discussion of board business without public posting of the meeting in the Texas Open Meetings Act, as the Texas Open Meeting Act requires. We had a consensus, and the board president has undermined the board and the process with her email and how the agenda was presented. Point of order. Because of the apparent tainting of this process and the concern I have repeatedly expressed about the trust and respecting the District 2's community, and what I read in the president's email, which I am unfortunately not able to read without it being on the agenda, the situation is much worse. I also believe that some actions support the idea that the president has a personal conflict of interest in this matter, given that the board may elect new officers in a majority that is not in her favor. Therefore, I respectfully request, Mrs. Grona, that you recuse yourself from the deliberation and voting on the SMD2 appointment process.
For what reasons?
Yeah.
She broke the Texas Open Meetings Act. She sent an email.
How was that email a deliberation?
I cannot read it here. There are certain things that we can discuss in executive session on this, but it was. Because you made that choice. You took it upon yourself to make the decision to take it from open to closed session. We could not reply back to you, because it would have been you had created a quorum of board members. We could not we would have been breaking the law. So I'm very concerned, and I just think this whole thing has been tainted, and I think it's time, for you to recuse yourself.
Well, I don't feel like I need to recuse myself.
The president has authority to set the board agenda, and I don't see why we can't discuss, after we have the interviews, discuss that in open session afterwards. I think we've asked people to be here for these interviews. I think we can have those interviews, and I think we can have the discussion out here after, if we have whatever deliberation, then come out and have that same discussion out here if we need to. It's an agenda item, and so I don't see why we can't move forward tonight.
Well, Mr. Meyer, my concern is the process. Obviously, we've been talking about this the whole time, and obviously things changed, right? I read the 11 points that were pretty clear, although we didn't make any specific motion on those 11 points. Right. And we talked about open session, and I believe there was a consensus that if we can do an open, we'd do an open. And the board president does have certain latitudes, but to do that, we can't talk about the particular email because that would continue a problem possibly under the Texas Open Meetings Act. Because anyways, I won't go there right now, but I think we have to do this in open, or we need to sit down and we need to hash this out in open, the exact process we're going to do, because things keep changing, evolving every time. It's been said multiple times that we haven't followed the process, which is not true, because on August 21st, I said 3 things. That was my motion. We'll take applications, we did that. We'll do interviews, we did that, and we'll vote at the appropriate time. And we did vote at the appropriate time. So any more of this, we aren't following the process, is not true. We made a vote. Nothing was actually decided. And then the next step at that point, because of the clear challenges we have, multiple motions were made to do the October 23rd, try to get agenda items, or the September 23rd deadline for let the voters decide, because we have had some disagreements here. So that's a huge concern. And I really don't want to cancel these interviews, but they need to be an open session. We owe it to the community in transparency. That's, I believe, what was stated. And so I'm not even sure how it got into the paper about it might be open or closed, or how the names got released for that matter, quite frankly, which was another concern I had, that we did not this go around say we're going to release the names, yet the names showed up in the paper the day afterwards on the 26th, as well as the open or closed debate, which was never a debate. The only thing that was stated was by me that it would be open session. So I'm not sure how that information got shared with the press. I know I didn't talk to him, but that's a concern too, because that was closed session type information that apparently got leaked or got spread somehow that I'm not sure, without board action, the board corporate approval. I'm sorry, Ms. Mayor, I thought you were going to say something. I saw you were going to push a button.
So you've made a lot of accusations and insinuations this evening, so it seems to me that we need to have a motion to cancel tonight's meeting and reschedule after talking with legal on this, because I have to agree with the premise that in our board operating procedures, it does say that the board president, in association with the superintendent, will do our agendas. And that has been a policy and something that's been ongoing for many, many years. So I don't know, we were all informed of that Ms. Grona had discussed this with legal, so
And
I
we
think
were-
now we're kind of getting into some areas that anything that is said or done tonight could be misconstrued or used for us, against us, whatever. So I think we may need to cancel everything tonight and sit down with legal.
If we need to do that, it is unfortunate. I see our first person is here to interview, but we may need to do that at this point because things keep changing. And it's
We could continue with the process that we already discussed, that everyone was notified of, that we have 4 interviews tonight that were scheduled, as was discussed, for 45 minutes apart and in executive session, and continue with this and hopefully maybe come to a decision.
I'm not willing to do.
I would like to really have a voice for the District 2 community, and I think that that's our responsibility to do that.
I would
Point
agree.
of information.
Go ahead, sorry.
So, and Ms. Huey, I understand and I hear what you're saying, but it seems as though every step we take to have a voice, as long as it's not the way you want it done, then we can't move forward. I think for the sake of transparency, it's only fair to our community, it's only fair to our candidates that we have an open session, open forum. They're not personnel, we're not hiring people, we are looking for somebody to fill a public position. And I feel that at this stage, with so many disagreements and so many things back and forth, anything that we do in closed session is going to be highly suspect and something that we're not going to be able to talk about or defend ourselves. There's been all kinds of talk about racial issues and equity and all kinds of things that I think need to be fully transparent so that the community understands that we're following our guidelines that are on the agenda. Even the Northeast Independent School District does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, gender, national origin, age, or disability. And we've gotten emails and all kinds of stuff saying that if we don't do it this way, don't do it that way. I think for that sake, we need full transparency and open in interviewing these individuals. And they're not personnel, they are going to be in a public forum. They are going to be, just as we are, subject to scrutiny, subject to questioning. And that, I feel if they're stepping up to take this position, they should be aware of that, just as we have been, and that we need to be as open and transparent as possible. And I don't see us doing it any other way. So Ms. Huey, I agree with you. If we can't come to an agreement to have it in open session, then I don't feel I can be a part of this. And
I'll make a motion to cancel this meeting and reschedule it after we've had appropriate time to discuss with legal and clarify the process so that it is very clear, transparent, and agreed upon by the board what we are going to do, discuss publicly.
Can I ask you, though, one question? Did you address any of your concerns with Ms. Grona before tonight's meeting? To where
Yes.
maybe this could have been resolved before we brought in
Yes, ma'am,
these people?
I seconded to have an agenda item to discuss this, with the concern about that. And
Did you,
can't-
no, I'm
I
asking you
can't,
if
no,
you reached
because
out
of
to
the
her.
Texas Open Meetings Act, we already had a quorum. That email is a quorum talking about board business, and to engage in that series of communication, talking about it would have created, which is the great concern I had, because originally that was going to be my plan. We don't have a vice president who I could spoke to, which wouldn't have mattered because all of us are
So
on that
did you
email.
try to reach out to Mr. Lopez?
I did not try to reach out to Mr. Lopez on this particular matter.
Thank you, that was my next question. Did you reach out to Mr. Lopez then?
I did not, because I did not do that at this point. I was trying to figure out the best way forward, because once again, we have to address that issue first, and we need to obviously have a very clear process, a very specific motion, because every time it seemed things keep changing. And so I did not, but I could not talk under our board operating procedures to the board president about it. And obviously the concern because of she sent the email, so, and all of us were on there. So that's a concern about
I do
possible.
believe that you can respond individually to that email, not reply all.
It still would have been a series of conversations, written, or if you have a written or verbal exchange, series of communications, knowingly involving with something within our jurisdiction, which is in our BBE and BE legal and local, it becomes a walking quorum. And I couldn't take the chance to take that chance, because if I replied to you and say, hey, Mrs. Grown, I have a problem, I would be now engaging in a series of communication, because you already put all of us on there. So even if I did it back to you individually, it's still continuing that series of conversations. It's a very significant thing. That is the law.
But then I could have gone to Mr. Lopez, and Mr. Lopez could have sent the email to the board.
Well,
So,
okay,
so
you
I
sent the
have a
email.
motion to cancel the interviews. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, so we have 4 ayes. How did you vote, Mr. Byer?
I voted aye.
Okay. All right. I apologize to the applicants who have been here for your interview. We will be in touch as to the next steps. This meeting is adjourned at 5:49.